Picture this. It's March 1943 and you're Hauptmann Klaus Weber, one of the Luftwaffe's most experienced pilots, flying the revolutionary Messerschmitt Me 262, the world's first operational jet fighter. You're cruising at 32,000 feet over occupied France, confident that nothing the Allies possess can match your aircraft's cutting-edge technology. Your twin jet engines are pushing you through the thin air at speeds that propeller-driven aircraft can only dream of achieving. You're flying the future of aviation, a machine so advanced that it should render every Allied aircraft obsolete. Then your radio crackles with an impossible report from ground control. Achtung! Feindflugzeug approaching your position from the southwest, altitude 38,000 feet, estimated speed 420 miles per hour, climbing. You crane your neck upward, scanning the crystal-clear sky above you, and there it is. A sleek, twin-engine aircraft with distinctive twin booms, flying not just higher than your revolutionary jet, but climbing even higher as you watch. The aircraft appears to be made of wood, its surface smooth and unmarked by the rivets and panel lines that characterize modern metal construction. Your first reaction isn't tactical, it's existential. How is this possible? You're flying a machine that represents the pinnacle of German engineering, powered by revolutionary turbojet engines that took years to develop and cost millions of Reichsmarks to perfect. Yet above you, seemingly mocking your advanced technology, flies what appears to be a wooden aircraft that looks like it belongs in a museum, not in the skies over wartime Europe. What if I told you that this wooden wonder wasn't just keeping up with German jet technology, it was systematically outperforming it in every meaningful category? What if I told you that while Germany was pouring vast resources into revolutionary jet engines, exotic metal alloys, and cutting-edge aerodynamics, the British were building the most advanced aircraft of World War II using materials you could purchase at any lumber yard? What if the greatest aviation breakthrough of the war came not from German engineering genius or American industrial might, but from a small British company that critics dismissed as building furniture that flies? Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from, whether you're an aviation enthusiast in Seattle, a history buff in London, or discovering this incredible story from somewhere completely unexpected. I love connecting with our global community of aviation lovers. The story you think you know about aviation technology in World War II is not just incomplete, it's fundamentally wrong. Today, we're going to completely shatter the myth that the most advanced technology always wins, and reveal how the de Havilland Mosquito became the fastest, highest-flying, most versatile, and most feared aircraft of the entire war, all while being constructed from materials that furniture makers had been using for centuries. To understand how a wooden airplane could not only compete with, but completely dominate German jet technology, we need to transport ourselves back to 1938, when the British Air Ministry was desperately searching for new aircraft designs to counter the rapidly growing threat from Nazi Germany. The conventional wisdom of the time was absolutely clear and seemingly unshakable. Modern military aircraft needed to be built from aluminum and advanced metal alloys, armed with heavy defensive guns and protected by thick armor plating. Bigger was inherently better, heavier meant stronger, and metal was the only material serious enough for serious warfare. The aviation establishment had convinced itself that the age of wooden aircraft had ended with World War I. Wood was seen as a relic of aviation's primitive past, suitable perhaps for training aircraft or civilian planes, but completely inadequate for the high-performance demands of modern military aviation. The future belonged to all-metal construction, powerful engines, and increasingly complex systems that pushed the boundaries of what was technologically possible. Into this environment of technological orthodoxy walked Geoffrey de Havilland, a brilliant and unconventional aircraft designer who was about to propose something that would make the Air Ministry question not just his judgment, but his sanity. Instead of following the established path toward heavier, more complex metal aircraft, de Havilland wanted to build his new design entirely from wood. Instead of relying on heavy armor plating and massive defensive gun installations for protection, he wanted to depend solely on speed and altitude to keep his aircraft safe. Instead of following conventional wisdom, he wanted to create something that had never been successfully attempted before, a wooden aircraft that could fly higher, faster, and farther than anything else in the sky. The reaction from the Air Ministry was not just dismissive, it was openly contemptuous. Wood, in 1938, when the Germans were building increasingly sophisticated all-metal fighters and bombers, when the Americans were developing massive four-engine metal bombers, when every serious aviation expert agreed that the future belonged to aluminum and steel, the officials looked at de Havilland's revolutionary proposal and saw a man hopelessly trapped in the past, trying to build World War I aircraft for what was clearly going to be a World War II conflict. They rejected his design outright, telling him in no uncertain terms that wooden aircraft were not just obsolete, but potentially dangerous to the pilots who would have to fly them. They suggested that he should focus his considerable talents on more realistic projects that followed established engineering principles and used proven materials. The message was clear. The Royal Air Force needed modern aircraft built from modern materials, not nostalgic throwbacks to aviation's primitive beginnings. But Geoffrey de Havilland wasn't just stubborn. He was a visionary who understood something that the bureaucrats and military planners couldn't see. He recognized that the very properties that made wood seem obsolete to conventional thinking were actually the keys to revolutionary performance advances. Wood, when properly engineered and constructed using advanced techniques, was significantly lighter than aluminum while maintaining comparable strength. Wood could be shaped and formed into more aerodynamically efficient configurations than were possible with the metal fabrication techniques of the time. Most importantly, wood was available in virtually unlimited quantities, while aluminum and other strategic metals were becoming increasingly scarce as war clouds gathered over Europe. The breakthrough that would change everything came when de Havilland made a connection that no one else in the aviation industry had considered, partnering with Britain's centuries-old furniture industry. The country had thousands of highly skilled woodworkers who had been creating fine furniture for generations, craftsmen who understood wood in ways that aircraft engineers never could. These artisans knew how to bend wood without breaking it, how to shape it into complex curves, how to laminate multiple layers for incredible strength, and how to join pieces together to create structures that were both remarkably strong and surprisingly light. What the Air Ministry saw as a step backward into obsolescence, de Havilland recognized as a step forward into a completely new approach to aircraft construction. The furniture industry possessed manufacturing capabilities and material knowledge that could be adapted to create aircraft with performance characteristics that metal construction simply couldn't match. The revolutionary design that emerged from this unlikely collaboration was unlike anything that had ever taken to the skies. The Mosquito would be built using an innovative sandwich construction technique that combined the best properties of different types of wood. Thin sheets of birch plywood would be bonded to a lightweight balsa wood core using advanced adhesives, creating a composite structure that was actually stronger than aluminum while weighing significantly less. The entire aircraft would be held together not with the rivets, bolts, and metal joints that characterized conventional aircraft, but with specially formulated adhesives that created bonds stronger than the wood itself. But the real genius of the Mosquito design wasn't just in its revolutionary construction materials, it was in its completely radical design philosophy. While other aircraft designers around the world were adding weight in the form of armor plating, defensive gun turrets, and complex systems, de Havilland was systematically subtracting weight wherever possible. His aircraft would carry no defensive armament whatsoever, relying instead purely on speed and altitude to avoid enemy fighters. This wasn't just unconventional thinking, it was heretical thinking that challenged every fundamental assumption about military aircraft design that had been accepted since the beginning of aviation. The aviation establishment was horrified by this approach. How could a military aircraft survive without guns to defend itself? How could pilots be expected to fly missions in an aircraft that couldn't fight back when attacked? The concept violated every principle of military aviation that had been developed through decades of combat experience. Critics dismissed the design as a suicide machine that would get its crews killed the moment they encountered enemy fighters. When the first Mosquito prototype finally took to the skies in November 1940, it immediately and dramatically shattered every performance expectation that anyone had dared to imagine. The wooden aircraft wasn't just competitive with existing designs, it was in a completely different performance category altogether. The Mosquito was faster than the legendary Supermarine Spitfire, the RAF's premier fighter aircraft. It could fly higher than any German aircraft then in operational service. It could carry a bomb load equivalent to many four-engine heavy bombers, while flying at speeds that made interception by enemy fighters virtually impossible. Most shocking of all to the aviation establishment, it was accomplishing all of this revolutionary performance while being built by furniture makers, using traditional woodworking techniques and materials that were readily available at any lumber yard in the world. The aircraft, that had been rejected as impossibly obsolete, was proving to be more advanced than anything anyone else was building. The German response to early encounters with the Mosquito was a fascinating mixture of disbelief, confusion, and growing panic. Luftwaffe intelligence reports from late 1941 and early 1942 describe encounters with British aircraft that seemed to defy not just German expectations, but the fundamental laws of physics as German engineers understood them. Fighter pilots were filing reports of being consistently outrun by what appeared to be twin-engine bombers. Radar operators were tracking aircraft flying at altitudes and speeds that should have been impossible for anything the British were known to possess. The psychological impact on German aircrew was immediate and devastating. Luftwaffe pilots who had been trained to believe absolutely in German technological superiority found themselves being systematically outperformed by aircraft that looked like they had been built in someone's garage. The smooth, seamless wooden surfaces of the Mosquito made it appear almost primitive compared to the complex, rivet-covered metal aircraft that represented the pinnacle of German engineering. Hermann Göring, the bombastic head of the Luftwaffe, was reportedly so frustrated and humiliated by the Mosquito's performance that he publicly declared it impossible for the British to have built such an aircraft from wood. He insisted that German intelligence reports must be wrong, that the mysterious British aircraft must be constructed from some secret metal alloy or powered by hidden jet engines that German spies had failed to detect. The idea that his advanced all-metal Luftwaffe was being consistently outperformed by wooden aircraft built by furniture makers was simply too psychologically devastating to accept. But the performance figures didn't lie, and they couldn't be explained away by wishful thinking or propaganda. By 1942, Mosquitoes were routinely flying reconnaissance missions over the heart of Germany at altitudes exceeding 42,000 feet, higher than any German fighter aircraft could climb to intercept them. They were conducting precision bombing raids at speeds approaching 400 miles per hour, faster than most German fighters could achieve in level flight. Most remarkably of all, they were accomplishing these seemingly impossible missions with loss rates so incredibly low that they were essentially untouchable by German defenses. The secret to the Mosquito's incredible and seemingly impossible performance lay in the unique properties of its revolutionary wooden construction, properties that conventional aviation engineering had completely overlooked or dismissed. The smooth, seamless surface created by the laminated wood construction produced significantly less aerodynamic drag than the riveted aluminum surfaces of conventional aircraft. Every rivet head, every panel joint, every surface irregularity on a metal aircraft created turbulence that robbed the aircraft of speed and efficiency. The Mosquito's wooden skin was as smooth as a piece of fine furniture, allowing air to flow over it with minimal resistance. The dramatically lighter weight of the wooden construction meant that the same engines that powered much heavier metal aircraft could push the Mosquito to unprecedented speeds and altitudes. While other aircraft were struggling to lift their own weight plus armor, guns, and equipment, the Mosquito was using all of its engine power for pure performance. The weight savings were so significant that a Mosquito could carry the same bomb load as much larger aircraft while still maintaining fighter-like speed and agility. The flexibility and workability of wood also allowed the aircraft to be built with more aerodynamically efficient shapes and contours than were possible with the metal fabrication techniques available at the time. Complex curves and smooth transitions that would have been impossible to create in aluminum could be easily formed in laminated wood. The result was an aircraft that looked as much like a piece of sculpture as a machine of war. But there was another crucial factor that the Germans never fully understood or appreciated: The Mosquito's wooden construction method allowed for incredibly rapid design changes and performance improvements. While German aircraft factories were locked into complex metal fabrication processes that could take months or even years to modify, Mosquito production lines could be adapted and improved almost overnight. New variants could be designed, prototyped, and put into full production faster than the Germans could even identify what changes had been made, much less develop effective countermeasures. This manufacturing flexibility gave the British an enormous tactical advantage that compounded over time. Every time the Germans developed a new defensive measure or improved their fighter aircraft, the British could respond with an improved Mosquito variant that rendered the German improvements obsolete. It was like fighting an enemy that could evolve faster than you could adapt to fight it. The psychological impact on German aircrew became increasingly severe as the war progressed, and Mosquito encounters became more frequent. Luftwaffe pilots who had once been confident and aggressive began to develop what modern psychologists would recognize as learned helplessness. When you repeatedly encounter an enemy that you cannot catch, cannot outfight, and cannot escape from, it fundamentally changes how you approach every subsequent combat situation. German pilots began reporting that the mere sight of a Mosquito's distinctive silhouette was enough to make them consider breaking off their missions. The knowledge that they were facing an aircraft that could outrun them, outclimb them, and disappear at will created a sense of futility that spread throughout the Luftwaffe like a psychological plague. German engineers, desperate to understand how the British had achieved such revolutionary performance, began conducting their own experiments with wooden aircraft construction. But they had fundamentally missed the point of what made the Mosquito successful. The Germans approached wooden construction as simply a material substitution. They tried to build wooden versions of their existing metal designs, completely missing the revolutionary design philosophy that made the Mosquito possible. German wooden aircraft projects invariably failed because they were still thinking in terms of conventional aircraft design principles. They added armor, defensive guns, and complex systems to their wooden aircraft, negating all of the weight and performance advantages that made wooden construction superior in the first place. They were trying to use new materials to build old ideas, while the British had used old materials to build completely new ideas. Meanwhile, the Mosquito was rapidly evolving into the most versatile and capable aircraft platform of the entire war. Fighter variants equipped with 420mm cannons and advanced radar were shooting down German bombers over Britain with devastating effectiveness. Bomber variants were conducting precision daylight raids deep into German territory, hitting targets that had been considered impossible to reach. Photo reconnaissance variants were systematically mapping German defenses from altitudes that no enemy fighter could reach, providing Allied commanders with intelligence that was crucial for planning major operations. Night fighter variants equipped with the latest radar technology were turning the tables on German bomber operations, hunting Luftwaffe aircraft over their own territory, with a success rate that German commanders found impossible to believe. Fighter bomber variants were conducting ground attack missions with a combination of speed, accuracy, and survivability that made them more effective than dedicated attack aircraft that were much larger and more heavily armed. One basic airframe design was successfully fulfilling roles that typically required completely different aircraft types, each optimized for specific missions. This versatility gave the RAF operational capabilities that the Luftwaffe, with its philosophy of specialized single-role aircraft, simply couldn't match. The German jet program, which should theoretically have rendered all propeller-driven aircraft obsolete, found itself in the humiliating position of struggling to match the performance of what appeared to be a simple wooden airplane. The Messerschmitt Me 262, Germany's most advanced jet fighter and the culmination of years of research into revolutionary propulsion technology, had a top speed that was only marginally higher than the Mosquito's maximum velocity. Even more embarrassing, the Me 262's service ceiling was actually lower than what the wooden British aircraft could achieve. More critically, the Me 262 was plagued by reliability problems, extremely short engine life, and maintenance requirements so complex that most of the aircraft spent more time in hangars being repaired than in the air-flying missions. The revolutionary jet engines that were supposed to give Germany air superiority were so unreliable that pilots were warned not to make sudden throttle movements for fear of causing catastrophic engine failures. The Mosquito, by contrast, was remarkably reliable and easy to maintain under field conditions. Its wooden construction could be repaired by any skilled carpenter using tools and materials that were available virtually anywhere in the world. Battle damage that would ground a metal aircraft for weeks of complex repairs could be fixed on a Mosquito in a matter of hours using basic woodworking techniques. The aircraft that the Air Ministry had initially rejected as obsolete was proving to be more maintainable and operationally ready than the most advanced technology Germany could produce. By 1944, Mosquitoes were flying missions that would have been considered not just difficult but literally impossible just a few years earlier. Mosquito bombers were conducting precision daylight raids on targets in the heart of Germany, flying so high and so fast that German air defenses couldn't even track them effectively, much less shoot them down. Mosquito fighters were providing escort coverage for Allied bomber formations all the way to Berlin and back, a round trip that exceeded 1,010 miles. Mosquito reconnaissance aircraft were photographing German military installations from altitudes that made them invisible to ground observers and unreachable by defensive fighters. The impact on German war production and morale was enormous and far-reaching. Factories that should have been completely safe from Allied attack due to their location deep inside German territory found themselves being bombed by aircraft that appeared without warning and disappeared before air defenses could respond. German fighter production facilities were being disrupted by attacks from aircraft that their own fighters couldn't intercept. The psychological effect of being bombed by wooden airplanes was almost as damaging to German morale as the physical destruction of the attacks themselves. German attempts to counter the Mosquito threat led to increasingly desperate and expensive measures that diverted resources from other critical war efforts. Special high-altitude fighters were developed specifically to intercept Mosquito reconnaissance flights, but these aircraft were complex, expensive to build, and largely ineffective in actual combat. Rocket-powered interceptors were designed and built to catch high-flying Mosquitoes, but they were so dangerous to operate that they killed more German pilots than enemy aircraft, and their extremely limited range and endurance made them impractical for regular use. The fundamental problem that German engineers never solved was that they were trying to use brute force and increasingly advanced technology to counter a problem that the British had solved through elegant engineering and revolutionary thinking. While German designers were developing exotic materials, complex propulsion systems, and sophisticated electronic equipment, British engineers had achieved superior performance using the simplest possible approach, making their aircraft lighter, more aerodynamically efficient, and more operationally practical. The Mosquito's success also demonstrated the critical importance of manufacturing philosophy and industrial flexibility in wartime production. While German aircraft factories were struggling with chronic shortages of aluminum and other strategic materials that were essential for metal aircraft construction, Mosquito production was limited only by the availability of skilled woodworkers and suitable timber. Britain's furniture industry was transformed virtually overnight into a high-performance aircraft production powerhouse, turning out Mosquitoes at rates that German intelligence analysts considered impossible, given the aircraft's apparent complexity and performance. The manufacturing advantages went far beyond just material availability. The skills required to build Mosquitoes were widely distributed throughout British industry, meaning that production could be dispersed among many small facilities rather than concentrated in a few large, vulnerable factories. This made the Mosquito production network much more resilient to bombing attacks and much more difficult for German intelligence to target effectively. The versatility of the basic Mosquito design meant that a single production line could build aircraft for multiple different roles simply by changing equipment and internal configurations. This dramatically simplified logistics, maintenance, and pilot training compared to the German approach of building completely different aircraft for different missions. Spare parts were interchangeable between variants. Pilots could transition easily between different Mosquito types, and ground crews could service any Mosquito regardless of its specific mission configuration. This operational flexibility gave the RAF capabilities that the Luftwaffe, with its rigid doctrine of specialized single-role aircraft, simply couldn't match. A Mosquito squadron could be reconfigured for completely different missions in a matter of hours, while German units were locked into specific roles by their aircraft's design limitations. As the war progressed into its final phases, the performance gap between the Mosquito and German aircraft actually continued to increase rather than narrowing. While German designs were becoming progressively heavier and more complex as engineers added armor, defensive systems, and increasingly sophisticated equipment, the Mosquito continued to evolve toward even lighter and faster variants. The final production versions of the Mosquito were capable of speeds exceeding 460 miles per hour, faster than most early jet aircraft, and higher than any German piston-engine fighter could climb. The intelligence value provided by Mosquito reconnaissance variants was absolutely incalculable to Allied war planning. High-altitude photo reconnaissance aircraft could photograph any target anywhere in German-occupied Europe and return safely with detailed intelligence that was crucial for planning major operations like the D-Day landings. These aircraft could penetrate German airspace at will, photograph strategic targets from altitudes that made them invisible to ground observers, and return with intelligence that no other method could provide. German attempts to intercept these reconnaissance flights were largely futile exercises that wasted fuel, aircraft, and pilot lives while achieving virtually nothing. The Mosquitoes could simply outfly any aircraft sent against them, climbing higher and flying faster than their pursuers could match. German fighter pilots reported the frustrating experience of watching Mosquitoes disappear into the stratosphere, while their own aircraft struggled to maintain altitude in the thin air. The night fighter variants of the Mosquito completely revolutionized nocturnal air warfare and turned the tables on German bomber operations. Equipped with advanced radar systems and flying at speeds that German bombers couldn't hope to match, Mosquito night fighters began systematically hunting down and destroying German aircraft over their own territory. The psychological impact on German bomber crews was devastating. They found themselves being stalked by invisible predators that they couldn't see, couldn't outrun, and couldn't escape from. Perhaps most remarkably, the Mosquito achieved all of this extraordinary performance while maintaining one of the best safety records of any combat aircraft in the war. Its wooden construction actually provided better protection for aircrew than the aluminum structures of conventional aircraft in many situations. Wood absorbed impact energy more effectively than metal. Wooden aircraft were less likely to catch fire when hit by enemy gunfire, and the structural flexibility of wood construction meant that Mosquitoes could survive damage that would destroy metal aircraft. The Mosquito's loss rates were among the lowest of any combat aircraft used by any nation during World War II, despite being regularly used in some of the most dangerous and demanding missions of the entire conflict. This combination of exceptional performance and exceptional survivability made the Mosquito not just an effective weapon, but a sustainable one that could continue operating at high intensity without depleting trained aircrew through excessive casualties. The German aviation industry's complete failure to understand, counter, or replicate the Mosquito's success represented a fundamental misunderstanding of what actually made aircraft effective in combat. German engineers had become obsessed with complexity, advanced materials, and theoretical performance parameters, while the British had focused relentlessly on practical effectiveness and operational utility. The result was that Germany's most advanced and expensive aircraft were being consistently outperformed by what appeared to be a simple wooden airplane built by furniture makers. This technological blindness extended throughout the German military-industrial complex and reflected deeper problems with Nazi ideology and decision-making processes. The German leadership had convinced itself that advanced technology and complex engineering were inherently superior to simpler approaches, regardless of actual performance results. This assumption prevented them from recognizing or effectively countering one of the most successful aircraft designs of the war until it was far too late to matter. The post-war analysis of the Mosquito's unprecedented success revealed fundamental principles that would influence aircraft design philosophy for decades to come. the critical importance of weight reduction, aerodynamic efficiency, and design simplicity became cornerstone concepts in modern aviation engineering. The idea that superior performance could be achieved through elegant engineering rather than complex technology became a fundamental principle that guided the development of everything from civilian airliners to military fighters. But perhaps the most important lesson that emerged from the Mosquito's success was about the danger of technological assumptions and conventional wisdom in engineering design. The German aviation industry had convinced itself that advanced materials and complex systems were absolutely necessary for superior performance, and they had dismissed wooden construction as hopelessly obsolete without ever seriously investigating its potential advantages. This technological prejudice prevented them from recognizing or countering one of the most effective aircraft of the war until the strategic situation had already shifted decisively against them. The Mosquito's success also demonstrated the crucial importance of manufacturing flexibility and industrial adaptability in wartime production. While German factories were struggling with material shortages and increasingly complex production processes, British furniture makers were turning out world-class military aircraft using readily available materials and traditional craftsmanship skills that had been developed over centuries. The aircraft that everyone said couldn't compete with modern metal designs ended up outproducing, outperforming, and outlasting everything the Germans could build. Today, as we face our own technological challenges and grapple with assumptions about what constitutes advanced engineering, the story of the de Havilland Mosquito serves as a powerful reminder that the most effective solutions often come from questioning conventional wisdom rather than blindly following it. The aircraft that fundamentally changed the course of World War II wasn't built using the most advanced materials available or the most complex systems that technology could provide. It was built using the most appropriate materials and the most elegant engineering approach for the specific challenges it was designed to solve. The de Havilland Mosquito proved conclusively that sometimes the best technology is actually the simplest technology, properly applied with genuine understanding and creative thinking. It demonstrated that revolutionary performance improvements come not from complexity and advanced materials, but from truly understanding the fundamental principles of what you're trying to achieve and having the courage to pursue unconventional approaches when conventional wisdom proves inadequate. Most importantly, the Mosquito's story shows us that breakthrough innovations often come from doing exactly what everyone says is impossible, outdated, or impractical. When Geoffrey de Havilland first proposed building a high-performance military aircraft from wood, virtually everyone in the aviation establishment told him it couldn't be done, that it was a waste of time and resources, and that he should focus on more conventional approaches. When the first Mosquito took to the skies, it immediately proved that not only could it be done, but it could be done better than anyone had imagined possible. The wooden wonder that the Air Ministry had initially rejected as hopelessly obsolete became the most advanced, most capable, and most feared aircraft of its generation, consistently outflying German jets and fundamentally rewriting the rules of aerial warfare. It proved that revolutionary thinking combined with elegant engineering could achieve results that brute force and advanced technology could not match. The next time someone tells you that an idea can't work because it's too simple, too old-fashioned, or too different from conventional approaches, remember the Mosquito. Remember that the fastest, highest-flying, most versatile aircraft of World War II was built by furniture makers using wood, glue, and traditional craftsmanship techniques. Remember that sometimes the most revolutionary technology looks exactly like a step backward to people who can't see beyond their own assumptions and prejudices. Remember that in the skies over wartime Europe, wooden aircraft built by craftsmen consistently outperformed metal machines built by engineers, proving that innovation comes not from following the crowd, but from having the courage to think differently about fundamental problems. The de Havilland Mosquito stands as eternal proof that the most powerful breakthroughs often come from the most unexpected directions, and that true advancement comes from understanding principles rather than just applying technology. Stories like the Mosquito remind us that aviation history is absolutely overflowing with incredible innovations that challenged conventional wisdom and changed the world in ways that seemed impossible at the time. From wooden aircraft that outflew jets to simple designs that outperformed vastly more complex systems, the most fascinating and important developments in aviation often came from people who dared to think completely differently about seemingly impossible problems and had the persistence to prove their revolutionary ideas in the face of overwhelming skepticism. That's exactly what we explore here on this channel. The forgotten innovations, the overlooked breakthroughs, the revolutionary ideas that shaped the world we live in today, and the brilliant individuals who had the courage to challenge everything that everyone else accepted as unchangeable truth. If you're fascinated by stories of engineering brilliance that defied all expectations, if you want to discover more examples of how simple, elegant solutions can outperform complex, expensive ones, if you believe that the most important innovations come from questioning rather than accepting conventional wisdom, then make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Trust me, you absolutely won't want to miss the incredible stories we're uncovering next. The history of human innovation is filled with wooden wonders, unexpected breakthroughs, and revolutionary thinkers who changed everything by refusing to accept that things had to be done the way they had always been done. These stories have the power to inspire us to question our own assumptions and to look for breakthrough solutions in the most unexpected places.